So before we leave off talking about global variables, there are a couple other things I wanted to mention. There actually is one case where global variables can be useful, and that's if you have constant global variables. So if you're doing something like you want to define some max number of enemies, you could say something like const int max enemies equals 10, something like that. I mean, well, and this would have to be an extern or something, depending on how you're using these. But with this, let's make it an extern. Okay. So with this, what you're doing is you're saying you're saying I'm going to use this variable name instead of the number 10. All right. So it's just a way of being clearer in your code about the values you're using. Okay, it's more meaningful in your code to say, while while number of enemies is less than max enemies, than to say while number of enemies is less than 10. Okay, so in that case, it's a good idea to use constant globals. Okay, but you want to use them as constants. Don't hide them, with by declaring local versions of them and stuff like that. Just it's a tool to make things clearer in your code. That is a valid use of globals. And another thing you'll see, this is our example.h file from the the pointy example, drawing points using OpenGL. You'll see declarations like this inside of a class. Okay, and we'll talk more about classes later on. But here, notice we have these private variables, m vertices and m vertex buffer, and these are declared inside of a class. Okay, so what that means is, but they're outside. Notice they're outside of any particular function. So what that means is that these variables can be shared by any of these methods inside this class, but it's still encapsulated inside the class. So that's another way of having variables, we call these fields belonging to the class, of having variables that are still encapsulated because they're still inside a class, but they're accessible to more than one, or they're accessible to all the functions inside that class.